Hey everybody, this is a view out my window. I'm going to go screencast video with a couple lectures over the next few weeks because I think it's best for us. It's probably the easiest, it's most asynchronous. I'm going to play you some of our good old chill hop beats behind and let's go ahead and walk through. So the objective today, pretty simple. I want to go over how I would go about putting together my rough draft if I were you. So we're at 323. Let's do it. All right. Here's some things as a self review in the introduction. Did you define your issue? Did you explain its significance enough to answer that so what question? We all know so what is about significance. It's about saying, yeah, okay, but so what? Or how is this unique? And so you want to emphasize that cost. And the stakeholder here is a person that would have mild interest in your topic. Let's say it's a fellow college student and they want to be convinced a little bit that, yeah, there would be a loss of money or time or health and a significant loss to a potentially big player in society. And we'll see that in a moment. I've got a great essay. We're going to walk this all through and look at it in real time. The second is your focusing statement or your first mention of the thesis or launching question, whatever you want to call that thing. Is it narrow enough? And here again and again, I've chatted with you guys. I've hopefully coached you to a point where you're happy and hopeful. But I need you to dive in. If you're still skirting about that generic statement, we need to kind of make sure it's up front. And for most of us, it probably is going to help us to have this anchored in the introduction, meaning we're going to want to be fairly narrow even to begin with. Your topic sentences reference and extend that initial focusing statement. What does that mean? They don't have to answer that focusing statement necessarily um, if it's a question or thesis, but most topic sentences should. I mean, yeah, you'll write a second paragraph on the same idea, and yeah, that means that you don't have to necessarily state explicitly a version of the thesis in your topic sentence or a version of how you're answering the focusing question. No, of course, common sense, which hopefully you know I'm here in bartering working through with you. But to be perfectly clear, it's always good to reference keywords out of your focusing statement or thesis in your topic sentences. Those are the first sentences usually in the following paragraphs of your essay. Are there clear ties between the first and the last sentences of paragraphs? This one, guys, is probably the biggest one I could encourage you to look at after you've written the draft. I want to encourage you to write the draft and then go back to this point because it might be too hard. Often to write good ones originally, you need to kind of pre-outline, pre-sketch so that this is pretty clear. And at first, they're often wooden, meaning they just feel a little artificial. And so you have to kind of work hard for these. And when I redraft, this is where I revise. I go right to my ties. I call them my ties, which are the links of keywords and ideas stretched between my paragraphs. It allows me to see that I've got an accordion. I'm stretching out that accordion to make the sound. The accordion being the different folds between the paragraphs. Each point has a point that links to the next point, just like an accordion would open up all of its baffles. All right, maybe that metaphor didn't work, but heck, you know me and you can smile, guys. Do you have two main authors, four total? Yes or no? Big time issue, right? Make sure the two authors, the two now, not the four, the two authors are introduced by their profession, their expertise, their main purpose that they wrote in their original piece. Make sure those two authors are compared and contrasted. If you've got a study, I get it, but just compare the basis and the meat of that study with another. You've got to do it at least a little bit through the essay. Overall, did you get enough analysis and did you really punch it in the conclusion? Very, very key, guys. Gotta have it. Gotta give yourself room. Those of you that save the last punch for 3 lines in the conclusion, it's not. That's not what this essay is. It is an argument that closes out. So that analysis brings together the main insights that you're driving. Does it have to be an argument all the way through the paper? Not necessarily. Could be lots of data with some analytics, and then you drive the argument again, usually in the last two paragraphs. Let's apply it, guys. Let's go to sample. Again, thank you guys for kind of walking with me. So here's the draft. First things on the header, we're going to go ahead and just kind of fix this together. So I'm going to go the way it needs to be. It's going to be lowercase and running head, and then this is correct. That's the first part of the title, and it's in caps. I do need to insert the page number. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to do this one, my option here, folks. All right. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure all of this is aligned to the right. And then I'm going to put a cursor right between my number, my page number, and the title. And I'm just going to hit tabs until I extend that running head back to its spot. How do I know it's flush left? Well, here's what happens. If I go one more, boom, it drops it to a separate line, so I don't want that. And there we go. All right, this needs to be 12-point font. Let's just get that. All right, it's 11 or 12, depending on your size font. We can deal with it. This person is a wonderful draft. I want to make sure this person feels complimented. And it's a very full draft and worked a lot together. And I'm going to make sure I keep sections of this draft anonymous. But that said, I want this person to know, we've chatted a lot and I believe so much in this. And it's not a that said, it's really in reinforcing the same point, which is great draft. I'm going to go ahead and extend some aspects of it. And we're not judging, we're doing this in the spirit of improvement and showcasing good stylistics and content that lets us have this conversation as a group in these couple sections. So here we go. This is all correct. Technically, this would be on the next page, and it was originally, so I just want to go ahead and show that as such. This would be out. Don't need it. Don't need this. Out. Okay, so what we have as an opening is a real good setup here about the dream college and freshman year, prestigious university, and yet here's the problem. We got to get to adulthood, live on our own, learn to cook, how to clean, how to manage time. And here's the ironic phrase that I think could even be punched more here by this person. Yeah, it's great though. And how to learn without any assistance. There's pure irony in that phrase because the rest of this particular piece is about accommodations. And so we paint a dark picture here of how there's an advisor, no external resources. The advisor's not there. Um, my buddy's calling. Hey, Doug. No, not now. On top of this, no tutoring, no workshop recitation sessions. The profs don't have office hours. Couple things here. You're building up a case, but you're building it up off of sort of a possibility. If we can drop a stat in here or some kind of survey results, you've got one later that says that 27% of females leave because of lack of accommodations. Leave the university. That's close to a third, right? That's a crazy stat. Might drop it here. I know some of us feel like, I only have so many of those precious, precious, beautiful, big stats. You can find enough of them, and then sometimes you can drive that same stat later in the piece. So don't feel bad about using it. All right, let's drive through here, guys. So I'm, again, applying some of these precepts. Let's go back real quick. We're looking for a focusing statement and whether we've got cost. So I'm suggesting on the cost here, we ramp up a stat in the first paragraph to kind of get that driven. All right, and it's good overall. It just probably dropped the stat, and then we'll look here at the focusing statement. So every student struggling to learn, they got to find out with minimal assistance in the hardest time of your academic life. Nicely done. I'm going to call you Andrea. Andrea, nicely done. What can they even do? Right? And driving with questions to get us to feel the pinch. All right, let's get to the focusing statement, question, thesis. All right, for students who need accommodations to succeed, this can be a reality for them. Many administrators do not have the proper materials needed to assist students who need them. Not sure, it's a little muddied of a statement here. Andrea, I might just go ahead and say, what can they even do is really the drop here, and I might drop right from that to the thesis. And I'm going to suggest you have here as a sort of soft introduction thesis, working thesis, and we've talked about this, that they feel alone, and if their needs aren't met, they might lag behind. I think you've already implied that, so you don't need to necessarily state it again. But here on the focusing statement, I would really drive a little deeper. So by encouraging universities to increase their budgets for disability services, we can ensure students have a fighting chance. That's really not what you're going to be arguing later on. And I think your argument is that more accommodations need to be thought of uh, in terms of emotional care. More accommodations need to be made in broader terms, especially for those with emotional problems. We need to widen our understanding of accommodations, not only fund, but widen. So the problem is, again, we've talked a lot about this, Andrea, is trying to write two theses. And I think it's not bad. It's like we can do this. But I think you want to plant that real thesis even here and drive a little tighter with the rest of your material. So let's look at it, guys. So again, I'm suggesting here, hinting as to a little bit more how, arguing there should be uh, really the emotional services and the services we often don't think of, like the ADD stuff, needs to be counted for. All right, so we could almost make the argument that, yeah, heck yeah, man, we need money, and heck yeah, it should be done, and this is crazy. But the bigger thing that you're arguing for is the emotional, uh, psychological issues being better covered and accommodated, and in that, accommodations being broadened and normalized for all people to get access. So what happens here, now we go into the next paragraph. In order to create an environment where accommodations are accessible, we need to define it, basically, right, what it is. That's fine, but I'm going to suggest to you, you've got 5 different main factors here that define whether a person meets academic accommodations. And I'm going to say, great to mention all of them, but I would just really run the table strong toward the ones, toward the thesis again, which I believe, as we'll look at the later part of your work, is really, again, emotional, psychological issues being better covered and accommodated. All right, so we've got a lot of these factors, an inability to learn because of intellectual health factors, or to not be able to maintain interpersonal relationships well, pervasive mood of unhappiness and depression. Here we go, starting to drop a little bit in, and I think you could blow that one out, and I'd blow out what you have now later on as other factors. So I would trim out some of this, and here you go ahead and hint, you get into a little bit of your argument. This is where we can see, for example, many factors come into having an inability to learn that don't directly point to a condition like ADHD. Yeah, heck, this is the argument. This is the cool one. This is the one that's not intuitive, if you will. People won't feel like, yeah, I kind of already knew this, or yeah, of course we're supposed to fund everything. That's great, great, great. And don't hear me saying this is wrong, Andrea. Don't hear me say that. I'm just saying when you want to get with thesis, you want to drive with something that's more than base intuitive, meaning that more than what most people would believe. All right. So anyway, I want to trim out all these guys. I don't want to get everyone bored here, or we've got to go too far too fast. I mean, too thick into this. All right, get at the ones that deal with feelings and deal with pervasive mood of unhappiness and depression, the fourth one there, and probably the second one, and just drill the point that counseling is great, but we need, oftentimes, you mentioned somewhere in here that it takes years. And so, as such, the accommodations need to be grounded also academically in the classroom. All right. There are all kinds of conditions that can be treated through accommodations by keeping the definition vague. Isn't this interesting, guys? Come on, everybody, listen in on this. Come on. Keeping them vague, we can be inclusive. And I might say, again, vague, especially, maybe adding a clause here, especially those accommodating emotional states of mind or psychological conditions. I might say psychological. You come back to ADHD. So that's where I'm seeing, if you will, the real thesis pop up. Having a low attention span due to ADHD makes it hard to process and copy. really good, and so on and so forth. And I'm going to skip through some personal data I don't really want everybody to see, but I thought you did a beautiful job there. And then you kind of drive the how a lot of people aren't even able to get access to writing centers and how those need to be upped. And then you got this beautiful stat, 27%. It's not a beautiful, it's an ugly stat, but you know what I mean by beautiful? It's a crazy strong stat. It's 27% of female college students reported dropping out because of not proper accommodations. Okay. And here now we're dropping into what I call your main or real thesis. College is more than academic adversity. Living on your own is challenging, and making sure there's good emotional headspace is essential, right? And again, we've seen a little bit of a loose link here between these sentences. Otherwise, we're at risk of losing a large segment of the population. I'm thinking that this material that you had with the 27% is really almost prefatory material. It might even be prefatory, some of this material prior to your definitions, because your definitions will probably roll you into establishing, hello folks, it's about emotions, ADHD, psychological conditions, etc. That we need to now open up and make those accommodations more vague and therefore make it more normed, where we almost expect everybody to have some kind of aspect of their life that needs to be accommodated. And you're just going to drill down on a couple areas like ADHD and emotional areas, emotional headspace. Now you did pretty much copy and paste your your topic sentence as your conclusion sentence. So go ahead and vary that a little bit, but good idea of repeating yourself nonetheless. To better understand how we can accommodate, it's very important to shine a light on what some of the most common disabilities are. I think here we're going sideways. We're kind of doing filler. We're not drilling the same argument. So now I'm saying, you know, um, excuse me, the first part of this, shine a light on what some of the most common disabilities are amongst students in the current age. I would say that is a side point. Anxiety disorders take precedence is not a side point. That's your argument, I think. All right. So again, look at the topic sentences, look at the conclusion sentence, look at the links between those conclusions and so on. Okay. Rest of the work was good. How can we can see, usually we can see toward a conclusion. I always skim back toward the conclusion when I'm looking at drafts. Like stats like here could have been probably dropped earlier. Usually you want your stats to pop earlier. 11% of students have some form of learning disability. That's under current rules, right? Maybe there would be a heck of a lot more, right? You dropped a study in, but you can see at this point we might be losing ground, and you've got a lot of pages here, and you could easily cut and just shuffle this into a much more linear argument by dropping the study in earlier. I just need to note this, everybody here, if you've been tuning out, ding, 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 I'm going to bring back Chill Hop to get your attention, okay? Here we go. Drum roll. All right, here we are. We're all back, right? Okay. Yeah, we can't just introduce a study. It's not did a study, all right? So we're going to conduct a study. How big was it? You're gonna footnote it. You're going to tell me the sample size. They interviewed multiple professors at prestigious universities. Okay, such as, maybe drop that in there. That's good. How many interviews? Could we footnote that or just even mention that? Or just give me a ballpark over 20 interviews, something like that? On top of polling them to ask their approval. Okay, cool. Again, now we really do need the number. I mean, how many did we poll? All right. So that's good information and great drive, but go ahead and give some background on it. You really drive this idea that 59% support accommodations that allow the use of proofreaders, and that leaves 40% saying, maybe not. That's crazy that profs or teachers would not fully allow that, and that's a good point, but that's more, again, could get you in the general weeds, meaning that would be probably early in your essay before you start moving us toward um, ADHD and psychological care as a major accommodation. Okay? Guys, we need to go out. I'm going to go ahead and play you something fun here as we do so. Um, and I want to say again, thank you guys. And if you've got questions, I'm going to be looking at your drafts to accommodate you on that. I'm going to go ahead and just play a fun video to kind of get us in mood space. And so thanks all for one of these babies, beauties, circa 1985, as you can see, pretty much. Here we go. We'll go back.
But I love the spring on it.
So yeah.
Spring load things right here.
Yeah, I do love that spring. Come on now.
Allows that force to be distributed.
My dad forced me to use that sucker.
Gifted in physics, not my field. Let's do a little love here. You can see the big pile. This is how we heat the hacienda, and I'm looking for a little bit of ash.
20 quarts, by the way.
This will do, I believe. Good God, if I know my ash. But anyway,
I don't know if that's ash. Come on, you woodsman. Let me know.
It just goes nice and clean. So let's see what we can get on this. I'm just going to single-hand it, see if we can get it.
I highly recommend it, guys.
Yeah. So, folks, I hope you're finding a way to take out your aggression. We're going to chat a little bit in a second.
Come on now.
No, that isn't ash.
Yeah.
Well, it is ash. Just
like come on, peoples.
All right. One of you ESF folk to help me out.
Come on, woods people.
Some hickory in here.
How do you like those clogs?
Actually, I believe.
Alrighty, people. Hang in here. It's only 10 seconds more.
Hello and goodbye, and we shall chat more now. In terms of lecture, be strong, be safe, be smart, smash a few things safely. Yes, indeed. And I will lecture more on material, folks. I'll be looking at your drafts, getting back to you. Stay smart, be strong, be safe, smash a few things lovingly.